everyone! If you're new to the channel, my name is Andrei Dima and I'm a travel photographer. Today I'm going to review the much anticipated Viltrox 13mm f1.4. And yes, I have some astro photos. I am going to start by saying that Viltrox made their best lens to date. The Viltrox 13mm f1.4 has some flaws, but overall it's a fantastic lens. That reminds me of the Nikon 20mm f1.8, a lens I used a lot in the past, and craved for something similar for the Fujifilm X system for a while. Yes, I tried the Samyang 12mm f2 AF but wanted more. I think this lens fills an empty spot in the Fujifilm lineup that most of us were waiting to be filled. And after a year of rumors and waiting, the Viltrox 13mm is finally here and does not disappoint. Viltrox did not send me this lens, I bought it with my own money, but maybe in the future they will send some lenses my way to review. Let's start with build quality and especially with weight and size, because I saw a lot of people complaining about this. It weighs 420 grams, that is 40 grams more than the Fuji 16mm f1.4, and this is a 13mm lens. I don't think it's such a big difference considering the lens is completely made out of metal, if you appreciate such things. This is not a big lens, this is a big lens, and I've carried this for many years with my Nikon D850 on a lot of hikes. I think the Viltrox 13mm f1.4 has a decent size for what it is. Here you have the lens side by side with the Viltrox 23mm, mounted on the Fujifilm X-T4, the Fujifilm X Pro 2 and the Fujifilm X-E2 to get an idea of its size. The Viltrox 13mm f1.4 is made completely out of metal. It feels premium, maybe better than Fujifilm lenses. Yes, I said that. I love the build quality of Fujifilm lenses, but this one really stands out. And finally, we get an aperture ring with clicks, and one I really like. Listen to that. Some Omar Gonzalez ASMR. The focus ring is big but a bit loose for my taste. It is not bad by all means. The travel of the focus is long enough for some nice focus pulls. It is really easy to manually focus with this lens, and it has almost no focus breathing, which makes it a great option for video. Speaking of video, wait until you see the autofocus of this lens. More on that later. It has a metal mount but no rubber gasket. I don't know if this lens has any type of weather dust sealing. I shot only once with it in light rain and had no issues, but this is me, I take a bit of risk with my gear, and doesn't mean you should too. It has a 67mm filter thread and, like almost all Viltrox lenses, a beautiful metal lens hood that snaps very nicely in place. This lens has no built-in stabilization, but being a wide-angle fast lens, it is easy to take sharp photos with low shutter speeds. And if you have a camera with image stabilization, that is going to be even easier. But I have a feeling most of you are going to use this on a tripod. The overall build quality of this lens is amazing. It feels premium, and I am glad that Viltrox finally made an aperture ring with clicks. Maybe they will do this with future iterations of their already released lenses. And now let's talk about image quality. Let me tell you and show you why this lens is so important in the Fujifilm lineup, because you can take wide-angle photos at night handheld at ISO 160 and get sharp results, like this photo here. It is even overexposed in some places, but that is not the point. The point is low ISO photos handheld for better dynamic range in post, or at least this is important to me. And yes, this lens is sharp at f1.4 in the center and not too bad in the corners. It is sharper at f1.4 than the Samyang 12mm at f2. For me, being able to take photos in low light conditions without a tripod is a big advantage. I can travel lighter and have more fun. With the advantage of having IBIS in my X-T4, I was able to take some amazing photos at night and in some beautiful interiors like the Mercat Central here in Valencia. You can also use this lens for street photography if you want. It's going to be harder because of distortion, but you can get some interesting shots. The image quality of the Viltrox 13mm f1.4 is just great, starting from f1.4. The only downside is the vignetting, but that is correctable in post. Stopping down the lens to f2.8 makes it sharper overall and improves contrast. The corners look better now, and from f4 until f8 the lens is sharp from corner to corner. The vignetting doesn't go away completely when stopping down, but I am okay with this considering how hard it was to build a lens like this. For those of you who are interested in sun stars, they look the best at f8. At f16 they get a bit loose and the image gets softer because of diffraction. When it comes to lens flare, the Viltrox 13mm f1.4 gives decent results. I didn't encounter any chromatic aberrations when taking photos in the real world, not even at f1.4, but the lens suffers from longitudinal chromatic aberrations, as you can see here, until f2.8. Now let's take a look at some astrophotos. Sadly, I took only these test photos when I got there because half an hour later it got cloudy and ruined my plans to take more photos that night. I hope these are enough for some of you. I will try to make an astrophotography video at the end of May when conditions are better here in Spain for astrophotography. My X-T4's image stabilization and focus when it comes to photography, about video later, work very well with this lens and I had no problem while testing it. The focus is fast, silent and works well in low light. I never missed a photo because of hunting, and eye detect works very well. The minimum focus distance is 22 cm and we have good image quality starting from f1.4 and great at f2. Even if this is a wide-angle lens, the bokeh looks quite good, in my opinion, and has a nice transition from autofocus to in focus. Now I know some of you were waiting for this, and so was I, a good autofocusing wide-angle lens for the Fujifilm X system. And yes, this is one of the best focusing lens I have ever tested. This and the Fuji 18mm f1.4 are the best autofocusing new Fujifilm lenses. The focus is silent and it doesn't get picked up by the internal microphone. This lens has very little focus breathing, and yes, the autofocus and eye detect work very well. This lens is a great option for video no matter what you want it for. Vlogging, travel, studio recordings, the autofocus just does its job. It is not perfect, but it is the best you can find on the Fujifilm system. A lot better than the Samyang 12mm f2. These clips were shot using continuous autofocus and there is no pulsing like on other lenses I tested. Overall, the Viltrox 13mm f1.4 is a complete package. It's great for any type of photography, especially in low light. It has amazing build quality, the focus is silent and one of the best for video when it comes to the Fujifilm system. And it costs half of what you would pay for the 14mm f2.8 from Fuji. Maybe Fuji will make a lens like this in the future, but at the moment the Viltrox 13mm is an unbeatable option that I highly recommend. If this video was helpful, please subscribe, and if you want to support me even more, watch this video from start to finish. This helps me a lot. See you next time.